Hello. Alright, we're back. Let's get to it. Gamera versus Death Ghidorah. Here's a pretty cool shot of Gamera underwater. I thought that would be a pretty good way to start things. And earlier I brought up Gamera's mana beam, so we're going to start with a bang. Here is Gamera absorbing the mana, the life force of the entire planet. He's calling it down to him, channeling it into one place right before he unleashes the mana beam. I'm going to go through this a little bit faster because we still have a lot more matchups, and I kind of want to try and do this all, at least get round one complete here in just one stream. Maybe I'll make this a series of streams in the future. We'll see how long I can last. But here's Gamera blasting Legion with the mana beam. Legion, pretty dang durable. She can withstand atmospheric re-entry. Meteorite-like impact. She can cut mountains in half. Yet here, Gamera's mana beam just completely eviscerates her. Okay, so why is Gamera pretty dang strong? Well, for starters, he's able to push down the Legion flower. Now, there's more to this than just pushing, mind you. With one hand, Gamera was able to push the Legion flower down. And I want you to remember, the Legion flower is 25 times Gamera's mass. Gamera, by the way, for this tournament is 60,000 tons. So you could say, I, again, don't care about your revised stats, Tom. I follow the official source. That's fair. All is well in love and war. You can hold that position. But friendly reminder, the official stats themselves are never really, they don't really factor into the actual movie. I promise you, if Godzilla and Gamera were ever to fight each other, the filmmakers wouldn't write a story where the characters go, oh, Gamera loses because he's 1/600th of Godzilla's mass. Although that would be hilarious. That would be pretty funny. But again, I don't really, even me personally, even with these revised stats, I'm not going to, like, you know, dwell on, you know, Gamera apparently being able to push over a 1.5 million ton object or anything. It's not where I'm going to, it's not what I'm going to focus on. I just think it's impressive that he could push over something that's 25 times his mass. That's the main key takeaway here. And he did it with one hand, and not only that, but uprooting it. Legion, it's not like, pushing it over is kind of like having trouble pushing over a tree. It's not only because the tree has greater mass, it's because it has roots that keep it in place so that it doesn't get blown over by strong winds and such. So Gamera is not only pushing over the Legion flower, he's uprooting it from the ground. Pretty impressive stuff. Also, Gamera holding back the 5 times size Legion. He did this with Legion's claws stabbing into his body while also bleeding severely. Earlier, I mentioned that when he goes in flight mode, he can be one hell of a dangerous monster, figuratively and literally. Here, he's trying to saw Iris in half. Why that's impressive? Well, just remember, when Legion had Gamera pinned and dead to rights, Gamera, thinking quickly, used his jet propulsion, and the jets themselves were so hot that the exhaust made Legion jump up. So again, the fact that Iris was able to withstand this is pretty dang impressive. Logan, good to see you, man. Don't worry about being, no need to be sorry, man. I'm glad you're here. Dude, I'm like already, I'm already tired, man. I've gone through a lot We're over 2 hours in. We had some issues with my internet and stuff, so kind of delayed things, but we'll see if I could speed things up a little bit while still maintaining, you know, giving you guys a pretty good analysis. So there's this, in the final act of Gamera, Guardian of the Universe, Gamera and Gauss are fighting in space, or maybe, you know, around the stratosphere, low orbit of the planet, before they start rapidly descending back down. For atmospheric re-entry heating, speeds must exceed Mach 5. I say that again, in order for there to be atmospheric re-entry heating, like at all, you have to be exceeding Mach 5. Peak re-entry temperatures are around 5,000 to 7,000 degrees Celsius. You might notice that Gauss here is withstanding those temperatures. But what he can't withstand is Gamera's fireball, absolutely vaporizing his head and severely burning the upper part of his body, killing the shadow of evil. So premise 1, Super Gauss tank atmospheric re-entry temperatures. Premise 2, Gamera's fireball disintegrated Super Gauss's head. Conclusion, Gamera's fireballs burn hotter than 5,000 to 7,000 degrees Celsius, or 4 times the temperatures that melted Godzilla. That last part was tongue-in-cheek. Oh my gosh, please don't hate me. I know Godzilla melted down at 1,200 degrees, but he could obviously withstand much hotter temperatures. I'm having fun. Don't take it too far. Logan's asking, how is this going down? Brackets, how many fights left? Yeah, one-on-one brackets for round 1. We have 30 contenders. 2 were on have a bye round, Ultraman Tiga and Gotana Zoa. We've already done Iris fighting Batra. I thought Iris would win that fight. We had Space Godzilla take on Mogera. Space Godzilla won that one. Biollante fought Legion. I sided with Legion in that. Godzilla fought Goza and won that. Bear in mind, a lot of the one-on-one matchups for these were all randomly generated, but I had done this all in advance, prepared slides, analysis, and such, explaining why I think these, who would win and why. And of course, if you disagree, you're more than welcome to share why. And, you know, I think a cool goal would be to change my mind, and it might ruin the entire tournament, and then I would have to make changes on the spot. So I say go for it. As you can see here, after being damaged by missiles, Legion's appendages are having a hard time containing one of Gamera's fireballs. Eventually, they blast out and go off into the distance and create a pretty dang powerful fireball here. You can't talk about Gamera's fireballs without getting into Gamera 3. For starters, Gamera's fireballs by the time of Gamera 3 are far more powerful than they were back in Guardian of the Universe. Here, they absolutely annihilate the 109 building. They make Hyper Gauss go boom right here. I mean, just look at that and compare it to when the previous slide of Super Gauss losing his head. The entire Gauss's entire body explodes, raining chunks, burning chunks onto the streets. In the final battle, Gamera is rapidly descending from the skies of Kyoto, unleashing a salvo of fireballs. Even though even though Iris deflects them, you could still see them land in the distance, and Iris here is 100 meters tall. These fireballs are insane. Now, some of you might be thinking, just so what? They're big and flashy. What's the big deal? Fireball size does not automatically mean their explosive force is dangerous, right? It doesn't mean they pose a significant threat to strong kaiju. That's fair. I don't think the size of a fireball necessarily means the attack in question is like, oh, stop the presses. This is just big news. This is just a huge, powerful attack. We should all be afraid of it. Not quite. But I do think contextual understanding is important. The whole point of this scene is to show, wow, Gamera's firepower here. It's pretty impressive. Also, he's doing way more damage to the city, those poor people. And Iris is pretty dang formidable himself for being able to casually swat away Gamera's best attacks. But why then do I think Gamera's fireballs are insanely dangerous to just about every participant in this tournament? I'll tell you why. First, here's a comparison. Here's Gamera at ground zero of the Legion Flower explosion. The Legion Flower explosion completely leveled the city of Sendai. This is easily comparable to a modern-day thermonuclear explosion or a hydrogen bomb. It left behind a massive crater, and there's Gamera in the middle. And here's what Gamera looks like after the devastation, after being at ground zero of this massive H-bomb level explosion going off in his face. Clearly, he's seen better days, and you could fairly counter this with, Tom, this is not a good Gamera durability feat whatsoever. After all, he's dead or he's comatose. One of those. That's fair, but I will point out something. Despite having an H-bomb level explosion going off in his face, Gamera's arms are relatively intact. Remember, Legion's electromagnetic beam went right through his shoulder and his shell like it wasn't even there. You know what else went through Gamera's limbs like they weren't even there? Gamera's own fireball. Later in the movie, later in G3, when Iris had Gamera dead to rights, Gamera actually blasted off his own hand in order to stop Iris from killing him. Gamera's fireballs are hot enough that they can blast off his own limbs, his own body parts. Parts that are, by the way, capable of withstanding, again, thermonuclear level explosions to the face at point blank. Here's Gamera creating a plasma fist after Iris fired his own fireballs at him. Gamera rebounded, took that fire, turned it into his flaming fist of justice, and with it, he burned it. He just plunged it deep in Iris's guts, and from there, he unleashed the plasma fist at full power. And you'll notice I want you guys to look at something here for a sec. Gamera and Iris are fighting inside of Kyoto Station, and after Gamera detonates or activates the plasma fist from inside Iris, we later see this explosion. The explosion is not inside Kyoto Station, that's to the right. The explosion, a massive one that sends shockwaves rocking through the entire city of Kyoto, which means this is more than just a pretty fireball. It is an explosive. It has immense explosive force. This means Gamera's plasma fist not only vaporized Iris, it still burned out of Kyoto Station and then blew up hundreds of meters away. That's a pretty dang powerful attack. And as previously mentioned earlier in Gamera Guardian of the Universe, Gamera's shell is immune, invulnerable to Gauss's sonic beams. However, Gamera's hand, not so much. Here's a shot of Gamera's hand receiving a bleeding cut. But by the time of the events of G3, Gamera has arrived at the point where he is not only highly resistant to Hyper Gauss's sonic-based attacks, They don't seem to hurt his hand at all in this shot. Gamera's hand is completely unscathed, undamaged. And the very same Gauss beam that cut a skyscraper in half instantly. While I don't think Heisei Godzilla's atomic breath is weaker than Gauss's sonic beam, I think an argument can be made that Hyper Gauss's sonic beam has more impressive cutting feats, if that makes sense. It could cut through buildings a lot faster than Godzilla's heat beam because Godzilla's beam is a heat-based weapon. It doesn't cut, it burns, but you get what I mean. So once again, I thought we should really, real quick, talk about this. There are some Gamera kaiju that are glass cannons. They're pretty weak, not that impressive. But just to remind everyone, the Gamera kaiju are not as weak as some people might think. Here's a shot of Super Gauss withstanding a salvo of missiles. And here's a shot of Gamera getting hit by 2 missiles. They do successfully knock him out of the sky. Bear in mind, this didn't actually injure Gamera. They just temporarily shut off his jet propulsion system. Here's Gamera tanking bombs to the face. And by the time of G3, 2 Patriot missiles explode, temporarily knocking out his jet propulsion, but he quickly regains it. The point is, conventional weapons, to my knowledge, have never actually injured Gamera, which means he could wade through them just like Heisei Godzilla could. So if your position is that Gamera kaiju are weak or Gamera loses because conventional weapons actually hurt him, I'd like to hear your argument, and please make sure you, share. There's a chance I forgot something or overlooked. Maybe there's a key moment where Gamera actually is, getting injured, or a missile or bomb made him bleed or something. The point is, Gamera quickly regained his equilibrium and blasted off just fine. Here's a shot of Gamera falling from the sky. He, of course, falls into an oil refinery, causing a massive explosion, but Gamera loves fire. He quickly absorbed it and energized and was able to continue the fight. Logan, the current fight is Gamera taking on Ghidorah. Here's our 3-headed boy now. Ghidorah is a very interesting kaiju with a very unique history. I'll be going over its history here in just a sec, but until then, here's something we're going to start off with. Ghidorah, after awakening after being imprisoned for millions of years, started absorbing the life force from trees. It's implied that he could absorb the life force from living beings like humans or animals or such, but he prefers trees because they live longer and have more energy. This is applicable. It comes into play later in Rebirth of Mothra, when Mothra Leo goes to one of the oldest trees on the planet, and it helps give him a much needed power-up transformation. Okay, so here is Mother Mothra hitting Ghidorah with an energy ram. Why is this significant? And why is there a chance that I might piss some of you off? Earlier, I talked about hyperbolic statements, and I also talked about how source material is not always reliable, especially when it can be contradicted by on-screen evidence. Here's an example of that. Mothra's Mach 80 strike here. That's right, it's said in guidebooks that Mothra's energy ram makes her move at speeds of Mach 80. If that's the case, then she imparted approximately 335 million tons of force in this scene. And then the Earth blew up and everybody died. The end. Okay, I'm just kidding. But that last part. This is a clear example of empirical evidence, as in what we see on screen, contradicting source material. Using contextual understanding, the point of the scene is straightforward. Mothra energizes herself in order to impart greater force. However, there's no in-universe proof that she really is moving at Mach 80 in this scene. Quite the opposite, sadly, since in film empirical evidence, trumps guidebooks. Mothra's Mach 80 speed is debunked, and I don't take it seriously. Sorry, not sorry. Moving on. That doesn't change the fact, by the way, that Ghidorah is extremely durable. He is like a kaiju tank, but we'll get to that shortly. Here's Ghidorah using his Pyre Road. His Pyre Road is an extremely powerful flamethrower. I mean, it's more than just a flamethrower. It actually does more. It does way more than just burning up the place. It actually begins to split the very earth itself, causing lava and fire to shoot up. It is incredibly powerful. It's a dangerous attack. And everyone, especially Mothra here, should... If you're fighting Ghidorah, you should be extremely careful. This guy's attacks are next level. And even with Mothra trying to fly away, I mean, we're talking about fire, explosion, lava just jumping up and still burning her severely. You want to know what else is pretty dangerous about Ghidorah? This guy was scorching over 8,000 square kilometers of forest within only a few hours. That's insane. And also, here's a satellite image of Hokkaido. These weather satellite pictures show the strange clouds. Look at all that. That is Ghidorah. That's Ghidorah's doing. Ghidorah can also fire these blazing hot energy attacks from each mouth. They are so hot that when they strike rock, eventually they reduce it to molten slag. Here's Ghidorah shooting at Mothra Leo larva and still blasting it into the air. I kind of think this is a nice nod to Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. In the off chance that you manage to get in too close and you might be overwhelming Ghidorah, he could still unleash an energy pulse similar to Godzilla's nuclear pulse and completely repel you, not only zapping you, but also blasting you with an explosion. And once he harnesses enough energy, he can fly. Here's Ghidorah meeting the extremely powerful Mothra Leo in the sky. And for a second, let's look at what Mothra Leo does to our guy. Mothra Leo goes all out. He's like going all Goku. He is throwing energy attack after energy attack, and Ghidorah eats it up. This is why Ghidorah is one of the most durable kaiju in our tournament. He's also really strong. The guy can just crash into Mothra Leo and seemingly, rival Leo's strength, but eventually Leo does overpower him and knocks him out of the skies. Finally, Leo goes all out, cranks it up, and unleashes the mother load of an energy attack. I mean, just look at this thing. This attack is extremely powerful. I'd say it's, again, one of the strongest energy attacks we've seen in a live-action Godzilla-like movie. Eventually, though, Mothra does incapacitate Ghidorah. You can actually do that with a... You have to go all out, and again, you have to use an extremely powerful attack to do it, or a series of them, but it can be done. And then Mothra Leo did just that, and performed a ritual that entombed Ghidorah. Ghidorah was once again trapped, and that's scary to think about. Mothra actually does not destroy, she doesn't actually kill Ghidorah, he's still around. By the time the trilogy ends, Ghidorah is still alive somewhere on the planet. That's pretty crazy. Wish there was a follow-up. But now, if you're interested in history, a history lesson, millions of years ago, Ghidorah did come to the Earth, and he started wiping out the dinosaurs, and he started causing all manner of issues. Here is where I'm sure some of you, who may not be particularly fond of my stance when it comes to sources, like official sources, like guidebooks and everything. Again, I will only challenge it if it's contradicted by on-screen evidence. And this source material, this guidebook, this scan here, does not contradict it. Therefore, it's accorded. This is a shot of what happened in the distant past. Your eyes do not deceive you, friends. That is Ghidorah taking on an army of Mothras. There are several Mothras, if not dozens, and they're all teaming up on Ghidorah. So a lot of this, you know, if not all of it, yeah, I think all of this is written in Japanese. So you might be thinking, Tom, that looks cool and all, but I don't know what it says. Don't worry. Ya boy translated the whole thing. I got it right here. I'm going to read just the first paragraph, but I'll leave it up for a little bit for you guys to read. Ghidorah was able to control the underground magma energy and used it to release hellfire. The land that Ghidorah scorched turned into a barren wasteland, and volcanoes erupted one after another. Not only did it cause massive fires, but it also released deadly poison gas, destroying entire ecosystems. In order to stop this, the Mothras gave their lives. Ghidorah was finally sealed away, but many sacrifices were made. There was only one survivor. That was Mothra Leo's mom. His mother, or her mother, survived this, and she was the sole survivor. That's right. All these Mothras died. Ghidorah killed them all. Here's something interesting I'm going to show you guys. Among the many Mothras fighting Ghidorah, there appears one. I'm going to call him Past Leo, because he not only resembles future Mothra Leo, but he also seems to wield Leo's godlike power. Seen here, Past Leo is using the very same attack that future Leo would use to incapacitate Ghidorah. Unlike in the future, however, Past Leo went up against Ghidorah at full power. Since future Leo's mother, again, she's the one that survived this apocalyptic battle, it's safe to conclude that Past Leo was slain by this three-headed demon from the stars. Here's something I need to mention, though. Unfortunately, Ghidorah in this tournament is not at full power, because again, we're focusing mainly on live action and also what they managed to accomplish in their respective live action movies. I still count that. I still recognize all of that as happening. That is clearly Ghidorah at full power. He is fully capable of destroying entire ecosystems, raising volcanoes, magma from the earth. He's taking on an army of Mothras, one of whom is comparable to Mothra Leo. And Ghidorah at full power would be a complete demon, and he could very well have won this tournament. However, he is not at full power. In fact, I think even if he were at full power, he is going up against a foe who is seemingly designed to counteract all of his major strengths. I think Gamera wins this fight, but not decisively. I think steadily. I think in the beginning, this is going to become like an exchange of fireballs. Each of them are basically going to just shrug off the other's attacks. But Gamera's going to quickly realize his foe is, well, feeding him. Not figuratively, I mean literally feeding him with his fire attacks. So even if this comes down to close quarters combat, which both like, and the other, and sure, Ghidorah can shock Gamera, keep him at a distance for a little bit, and Gamera's attacks are not going to immediately hurt Ghidorah or kill him outright. I do think, given Gamera's, how I just went into meticulous detail explaining just how insanely powerful Gamera's fireballs and his attacks are, I think those would eventually wear Ghidorah down, just like how Leo eventually did. And all the while, Gamera is steadily getting stronger. He's absorbing Ghidorah's fire attacks, his energy, and before you know it, Ghidorah is toast. Or Gamera keeps him around